What's up, guys? Welcome back to Savage Rounds with Xavier. Today for you, I've got the UFC Nashville matchmaking video. These are all the fighters we're going through today. I'm not going to read them all out because there's a bunch. You can see them all right there, though. We've got 12 today. Lately, I've been making full cards when doing this, but here's another. Kicking it off with Cody Durden. He had a great performance versus Jake Hadley. He was a dog in that fight. Was put in a really bad spot in the second round, but other than that, was able to do well on the feet, which surprised me. I thought Hadley was going to be getting the better of Durden on the feet, but it was the other way around. And then Durden, obviously, he's a wrestler through and through, so he was able to get some takedowns there and get the win. I think, well, before I say who I think it is, he just got moved up into the rankings. He was either put at 15 or 14. I can't remember exactly which one, but a guy just above him now in the rankings who hasn't fought in quite some time, had a banger of a fight last time out. Sumadarji. We haven't seen him, like I said, in almost 2 years now, I want to say. But he had that incredible fight with Matt Schnell where Madarji looked like he had him out of there all the first round, and in the second round Matt Schnell was able to rally and get him out of there. I think Madarji's like 12 or 11, so he's just a few spots above Durden coming off of a loss. This would be a banger. Both guys are dogs, and both guys throw heat, and this would be a sick fight. I'd really like to see this one get made, and obviously the winner would be in a good position to look up the rankings because Durden would have a win ahead of him, and Madarji, if he wins, would have just defended his spot to somebody below him, so he would get to look up, I would assume. Next up, another good win, Billy Q. He's been bouncing around right outside the 145 top 15 for quite some time now. I want to say he's been in that, like, I want to say not right outside. I wouldn't say 16, but maybe like that 20 to 30 range. He's been in that kind of mix. I think he fights somebody again, because he's been kind of back and forth, but he lost to Edson Barbosa, had his chance in the rankings. It didn't go as planned. He kind of defends his spot right outside the rankings, I'd say. Another guy, another person we haven't seen fight in a while, but also another guy like Billy Quarantillo, who hasn't fought, or who is just outside the rankings, I'd say. Jack Shore. It'd be an interesting test for Billy Q. Obviously, Jack Shore is pretty solid everywhere, and he's got, I'd say, a better gas tank than the guys he's fought recently. So it would be interesting to see how Billy Q handles it early and then late into the fight. And that would be a really good win on Quarantillo's record if he can get that done. And then obviously another win. I would say Jack Shore was pretty close to a ranked fight, but he kind of took some time off. I probably should have checked, but I don't know if he was injured or anything like that beforehand. So yeah, he took some time off. And yeah, this is the fight I think he should take. It would be a good win for him to start to look up again, if he's not out for a long time again. Next up, Kyler Phillips. A closer fight than I thought it was going to be against Taione Barcelos, but he dropped Barcelos in the first. I thought he was going to be able to hurt him more than that, especially after he did get the first drop. But overall, Kyler Phillips got the win, did what he needed to do. I saw some people giving him a ranked fight. I don't know if we're quite there yet. I think he should fight somebody who's kind of in the same spot as him, has stacked up a few good wins in a row, and is probably right outside the rankings, but is quite underrated. I'd say Kyler Phillips is underrated, not talked about as much, and another guy with a lot of wins who may be a bit underrated and not as talked about, Montel Quick Jackson. I think this would be a sick fight, obviously. Both guys slick on the feet. Montel's got some crazy pop at the end of his shots. All those really tall, lanky guys for their division, they always have some weird sort of pop at the end of their shots where they can knock guys out, like Montel, Sean O'Malley. There's Israel Adesanya. There's guys that just have that weird pop at the end of their shots when they're long and lanky. And Montel's another one. And both guys are obviously solid grapplers as well. Neither of them really go to it as their specialty, but both have it in their back pocket for sure. Montel more so wrestling, but he can snatch a neck. So yeah, I think this would be a sick fight, and definitely whoever wins would get a ranked fight next. You'd get to fight somebody in that 13 to 15 range, those three spots. Whoever needs to defend their spot in the rankings, I think the winner of this fight, if it gets made, should definitely make that fight. Next up, Ignacio Bahamondes, massively underrated Ludovic Klein going into this fight, and I talked about it in the recap video. Maybe overrated Ignacio Bahamondes' use of reach. Like I said, I'll have to go back and watch some other fights. When taping for this one, it didn't stick out to me that was going to be an issue, but it seemed to be in this one, so it'll be interesting to go back and look. Now that I'm specifically looking for that, maybe he's fighting in the pocket and being able to get it done. I don't know, I should have taken note of that, obviously, but I didn't for this fight, and it bit me in the butt. I talked about Ludovic Klein having some issues with taller, rangier guys that strike well, but the kicks weren't there from Bahamondes. He didn't use the range well, but regardless, somebody he should fight, I'd say, was just a bit below him in the ranks. A guy that's looking up, coming off, I want to say 2 wins now. I couldn't be for sure. I should have looked again, but I'm gonna start having the person I picked to fight. I'm gonna start having their Tapology up, just so I can not be saying I should have had it up. So I'm gonna start doing that. Need to prepare that better, but Natan Levy. I think if Natan Levy can get the win here, it would be a really good win on his resume. And if Bahamondes gets it done, it's just a good bounce back spot for him versus a guy who was on a little win streak. I believe in it. And like I said, I should have it up. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure he has at least 2 fights in a row now. So just a prospect on the come up. It would be another win for Bahamondes. And yeah, either guy would obviously get to look up from that point. Next up, the winner of the Bahamondes-Klein matchup, Ludovic Klein. He looked great all around, was able to get some wrestling going, looked good there, looked great on the feet, was able to hurt Bahamondes a couple times. Like I said, I massively underrated him going into this fight. And now he is definitely on a little streak. He's looked really good. He had that draw with Jai Herbert, but other than that, I think it's wins for his past few fights before that. I want to say at least 2. So yeah, he's looked really good recently. And on that sort of win streak, you've got to be looking pretty high up, even though he would definitely still be outside the rankings. But it's a guy I've made matchups. I've put him in 2 matchups recently. One of them, the guy got a matchup made pretty quickly afterwards, so it didn't end up mattering. And the other one, I kind of used this guy as a backup for the Joel Alvarez matchup that I made a couple weeks ago. I put him versus Diego Ferreira or Drakkar Klose, but I think since I put him as that backup, I want to see the Diego Ferreira fight for Joel Alvarez, and I think with Klose still needing a fight, this would be a sick one to make. Obviously, both guys decent wrestlers for sure, and would go out there and bang. So this would be a sick fight. And then obviously, maybe not obviously, but I would think if they wouldn't get a ranked fight after this, they'd be real close to that top 15 for sure, the winner of this fight. And I just think this would be a sick fight. Diego Lopez, he's been super fun to watch so far in the UFC, even in a loss on his debut on really short notice versus a top 10 guy in Movsar Evloev, or a top 15 guy in Movsar Evloev. In a loss, he looked good, was able to have Movsar in danger quite a few times, and then versus Gavin Tucker, blew through him in under 2 minutes. Gavin Tucker shot a takedown. He threw up that flying triangle type deal, was able to get his arm in danger and break the arm with an arm bar while still having that triangle in. So tough night for Gavin Tucker, but Diego Lopez has looked really good. I would assume he wants to get in there pretty quick, at least again before the end of the year. And another guy who just lost relatively recently, who, if he's able to, I would assume would want to get at least one more in before the end of the year. This would make for a super fun fight. Andre Fili just lost to Nathan Wood in a really close fight, so obviously he's a good guy. This would be a big test for Diego Lopez. Obviously, Feely has solid wrestling himself, and the striking is pretty solid as well. He's slick. He's got decent power. The kickboxing's there, and then we know the BJJ and the striking from Lopez. Obviously, the striking isn't elite by any means, but he's quick and he's got big power. It's a little wild. It's chaotic, but those are the kind of situations where he creates to thrive in. Next up on the night, we had Kennedy Nzechukwu lose to Dustin Jacoby, who will be up next. But I was looking through the 205 roster. There really aren't too many fighters in 205 and heavyweight. It's not as deep as the other rosters, those two weight classes. So a guy with a couple wins in a row now, who had just come down from heavyweight, Felipe Lins. I saw a tweet. Somebody was talking about Tanner Boser, who just got a win versus Alexa Kammer on the same card as Nzechukwu. So I wouldn't mind that either. That would also be one that made sense, but I had just picked Felipe Lins before I saw the Boser thing on Twitter. So I think either one would work. I like both matchups, but I went with Felipe Lins. I think he's had a few wins now, and it would be an interesting fight. Kennedy needs to defend his spot right outside the rankings, and Felipe is trying to move up into that spot. So fun fight for sure. Next up, the winner in the matchup versus Kennedy Nzechukwu, Dustin Jacoby. Great performance from him. He got the quick knockout. I talked about it on the recap. Some people thought it was an early stoppage, but Kennedy covered up for quite a long time before deciding to move, and it was like the ref reached down to stop it as Nzechukwu finally moved after a decent amount of unanswered shots. So maybe it was bad timing, but Nzechukwu didn't move for a long time, so I'm not too mad at it. There was a matchup that kind of got moved around, and then it ended up falling apart. We had Uzdemir versus Mirzakhanov. Now we have Uzdemir fighting someone who will be debuting in the UFC. I just saw the name, and I thought I would remember. That's why I didn't write it down. But I don't remember it now. But regardless, it's a debuter in the UFC. I don't know. Uzdemir, he's fought for quite some time now the top of this weight class, and he really only loses when he fights the best guys. Like, we've seen him lose to Cormier, Prochka, Ankalaev. Man, he always loses to the best guys in the weight class, Uzdemir. So it's kind of maybe a too early judgment, and I don't know about the guy. I'm assuming Uzdemir gets the win. Even if he doesn't, I think Uzdemir. I don't know. It'd be hard to say. This is the situation where Uzdemir gets the win versus this unranked guy. It doesn't really do anything for Uzdemir's position in the rankings. If he gets this win, he should fight Dustin Jacoby, because that would be a look up for Dustin Jacoby in the rankings. And Uzdemir, like I said, that unranked win versus a debuting guy wouldn't do anything for him, rankings-wise, obviously. So, yeah. This is the one to make, I believe. And obviously, I'm going to watch tape, and maybe I'll end up picking the other guy after tape. But it's just off the top, I felt like this is the one. Uzdemir probably wins. When I tape it, I'll talk about this if I think the other guy ends up winning. Maybe I'll make a new matchup, who knows. Next up, we had, was it the co-main event? Let me pull up the card. I can't even remember. Sandhagen font. Yeah, this was the co-main event. So it was Jessica Andrade versus Tatiana Suarez. Andrade has kind of been bouncing around between weight classes, so I did end up making two matchups for her. One for 115 pounds strawweight, one for 125 pounds at flyweight. For strawweight, just coming off of a win against Angela Hill, I think you go Mackenzie Dern in this one. Andrade is on 3 losses in a row, so obviously she's got to defend her spot. And I think this is the girl to do it for if she continues to fight at 115. And 125, I think you go with the winner of this fight. Both of these girls. It was supposed to be Viviana Rougeau versus Casey O'Neill, but O'Neill had to pull out. She got surgery a few days ago, she said. and she's hoping to fight in December or January, I think it said. But Jennifer Maia steps in. Both these girls ranked below Andrade. She's ranked 6th in both divisions now, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, just whoever gets this win would obviously get to look up Andrade again, whichever weight class she fights in. She has to defend her position. So the winner of this one, I think, Tatiana Suarez. She had a pretty good win over Jessica Andrade, we just talked about. She had the guillotine in round 2. This is her second win since that long layoff. She also had a second round submission versus Montana De La Rosa. And I have 2 matchups here. No, I didn't. I just ended up going with 1. Yeah, I had a thought about 2, but I just picked 1. We're going with Carla Esparza. We've got, for this weight class, what's the matchup? Zhang Weili versus Amanda Lemos for the belt coming up pretty soon. It's the co-main event of the O'Malley Sterling card, I do believe, the Boston card. And you'd assume Yan gets the next title shot, Yan Xiaonan. If she doesn't, maybe you set her up versus Suarez for the eliminator, but I assume Yan's just kind of waiting to see who wins that fight, and she'll get the next title shot. Maybe not. I could be wrong. So you could end up making that fight. But I think if that is the case, Yan's next for the title, then you go with Tatiana Suarez versus Esparza 2. They fought a while ago, obviously. Tatiana Suarez ran through her. Since then, Esparza has won the belt and is now at the top of this weight class. Obviously, she's not the champion anymore, but she's still highly ranked, obviously top 5 in this weight class. So if Tatiana Suarez got this win and Yan got the title shot before her, Tatiana Suarez would obviously be next. Yeah, I think that's the matchup you go with, unless Xiaonan is available for the title eliminator. If that's the route they go, that would also make sense. Next up, Rob Font. He came in on short notice for Corey Sandhagen. Umar Nurmagomedov wasn't able to make it to the fight, and I think that's the matchup you make. Umar was going to fight Corey, so he was already jumping up quite big in the rankings. Rob Font was a bit lower than Sandhagen already. Now with a loss, he may drop 1 spot. I assume just because it's short notice, he won't drop too much, and Sandhagen wasn't below him, so there's nobody to jump him. So I would assume he only drops 1 spot, and it would just put him closer to Umar. I think they obviously want to push Umar, and whoever wins, it would be a great win on their resume. If Rob Font was able to pull the win off versus Nurmagomedov, man, that throws him right back into that top 5, I would assume, or at least he'd get a top 5 fight next. And if Umar wins, obviously same for him. He'd be looking to fight somebody ranked above Rob Font, and that would be a great win on his resume. So yeah, I think this is the one you go with. Main event, Corey Sandhagen. This was a weird one because you assumed Valashvili's next, unless Sean O'Malley's able to pick his opponent, which who knows, maybe he will be able to, and then he gets like the Vera, Pedro Munoz winner, assuming Chito Vera wins. Obviously he would want that, and Sandhagen's going to be out for a bit of time now. We won't see him until early next year because of that elbow injury, so he was going to be right up there in that title talk, and I say O'Malley if he gets to pick. Obviously he hasn't won, but that would be if he won. And if he doesn't win, there is a vacant title there. Maybe they do that next year when Corey's back. They go Merab and Corey, but I just don't know how long they want to wait, because Merab, he's been out for a bit. I don't know when he's going to be good to go. I don't know. I think it just depends on the timing of those two. Corey's out for a while. Let's say the belt is held by somebody by then, and they've got Merab and let's say O'Malley lined up. If O'Malley wins, I think this fight makes sense at that point. Cejudo's obviously got a bit of privilege with Dana White. He got to come back after a huge and obviously he was the champion, so it made sense that he would get to fight high. I didn't think he would get the title shot immediately, but I think this fight would be fun. It would be really interesting to see how Sandhagen approached it, and really interesting to see how Henry Cejudo approached it. And obviously, the winner would get a title shot. I don't know, because Corey's been promised a title shot too. There's so many weird things with the top of this division now. Aljamain moving up. There's a title fight right now. Marab was promised a title shot, but he's hurt. Corey was promised a title shot, but he's hurt. Henry Cejudo's still here. There's so many weird things. I think this matchup, for the time frame, maybe will make sense. Who knows? I don't know. I just kind of put somebody here. Regardless, those are the matchups. It'll be interesting. We gotta wait until Corey's back to see who he's really gonna fight. It'll just depend on how the top of this division plays out. But those are the matchups for UFC Nashville. We just had the first episode of Dana White's Contender Series today. I'm gonna be, at the same time I drop this video, I'm going to drop a quick recap and debut matchmaking video for all the guys that got contracts. So I'll do that real quick. That'll come out at the same time as this video. And then obviously we've got UFC Vegas 78, Luque versus Dos Anjos this weekend. Check back Thursday for that. Drop a like on this video, subscribe, go check out the Dana White Contender Series video, and then I will see you guys Thursday. Peace out.